What is up, everybody? It is Rye here, back fresh from a 3-0 Nexus night, and I wanted to get my thoughts out and do a little deck tech on the deck again that I went undefeated with tonight. So this is a set list, and the astute viewer, the astute viewers might recognize that it is very similar to the winner of the Atlanta 10K that kind of just happened. But you also might notice the similarities purely because this is still only a one set card game and one set card pool right now. So of course there's going to be similarities. So I wanted to dive a little bit into how I feel about the deck, the matchups, if I think it's going to be good in the future. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to talk about, especially with the Summoner Showdowns coming up. So I kind of wanted to just hop right into it. So as you can see, we have a 6/6 distribution. Obviously, we got the boss. We got the Grove of the God Willow, the Dreaming Tree, and the Monastery. And I know I called out the similarities to the winner of the recent Atlanta 10K, but I wanted to call out the biggest deviation between this one and the deck that just won, and that is in the original deck list we had 3 of these guys, and we had this one over in the sideboard. And for me, after playtesting for a little bit, I ended up kind of switching that out. So now I'm running the 2 other yellow sets in the sideboard, and I put the oranges in the main. And something that I don't think that Piltover Archive does a really good job of being super clear about is which one you're running as your chosen unit. And I was running the yellow, kind of the one-off yellow. And I wanted to talk about specifically why I was doing that, because I think that's the biggest change that maybe informs the way that I felt like this deck played. And that was that this set, yellow set, gets absolutely hosed by green. I like every playtest that I was doing, yellow set was completely worthless whenever I was facing a green deck, strictly because of charm, and because of Blitzcrank. And for those who don't know, again, what yellow set does is he gets a +1 for each other buffed friendly unit at the battlefield. Well, not each other, but each friendly unit at the battlefield. So if he's buffed, it's a +2. And what this means is you can be extremely effective at turtling, insofar as, I got my yellow set on the battlefield. Maybe I've captured a battlefield. I've put out some pit rookies. I've put out some Cythrias. I've been playing my bars. I've got my Kinkoku monks out. Anything like that. I've got a couple things at the battlefield. I can reach into my legend zone. I can pull out yellow set. I can drop yellow set. All of a sudden he becomes 12, 13 might, something ridiculous. And he has tank, which means he's just a complete and total wall, right? And that is especially good because you can then start turtling with Grove of the God Willow. You can keep drawing cards. Monastery, you can't really do that. But here, if we've got buffs, if we're doing anything with like Call of Glory, for doing anything with challenge is especially good with yellow set, because you start to add plus because you're turtling. All of a sudden, boom, you can do a challenge. You do a challenge, you get to draw from the Dreaming Tree. Like, just yellow set can be phenomenal unless he gets moved. As soon as yellow set gets moved, if somebody charms it, if somebody, like any amount of movement, all of a sudden it completely worthless, utterly and totally worthless, right? And so that's why just running the Miser yellow set, but putting him in the legend. So if I build up that board, I can plop him down whenever I feel like it's good and necessary. That felt so much better than the originalist, which was running 3 of the yellow sets in the main deck. I haven't watched the Atlanta 10K yet. I need to go back. I need to see it because I've been having an extremely difficult time kind of understanding, based off of the games that I played, how he was able to run 3 yellow sets in the main board. Now, that being said, again, I did go 3-0 with this tonight against Kaisa 2-1. I 2-0'd against Darius, and then I 2-1'd against an Ari. So I kind of want to talk through that a little bit. I was playing against Ari was my toughest matchup, and I did a lot of the play testing against Ari and Yasuo, and that's why I'm kind of indexing so hard on my yellow set getting moved, because just, again, as soon as he leaves the battle, worthless. Just completely worthless. He gets pulled, he gets tried, anything. It's a disaster. It's a complete and total disaster. Meanwhile, we got orange Sett. As soon as he's coming down, he gets a buff. We can use that buff for, calls to glory. We can use that buff to go 2 for 1. You could even hidden blade. I just being able to activate his ability to get additional might, and then you're using challenge, and then you're using show. Like, you use his ability, you give him the plus might, you activate showstopper. Now you've got an extra +1. Like, this set coming down with a buff is phenomenal, and that makes all the difference in the world. So going into the matchups, 2-0 against Darius. Unfortunately, I don't really have much to say against this one. I think that my opponent kind of had a shit draw. He was running a pretty unique distribution of runes. I think he was running like 3-9 in favor of red, and he crapped out. So easy 2-0. Not really much to say there, other than an important thing is Cytheria. Keeping Cytheria alive, like, at all costs, has been phenomenal, because being able to use Cytheria's buff repeatedly to cast things like Call of Glory is excellent, extremely useful, and having a buff that you can repeatedly get rid of, again, for Call of Glory, and get rid of it when you conquer here, because the monastery doesn't require Cytheria to be on the battlefield when you conquer. You just may spend 1 buff to draw a card. So if you have Cytheria anywhere else, you're conquering the monastery, you use that, you draw a card, you get her buff back. This is repeatable buffs. It's extremely useful, extremely important. Keeping Cytheria alive is just wonderful. Pit Rookie, after you play Pit Rookie, it's, single use, disposable. You can get rid of it, whatever. So yeah, Darius, I can't say. I haven't played against Darius too much. It's actually the very first time I'd seen one. I've played it a little bit. I don't think it's particularly strong, so I wasn't having too much trouble. I think you just run the kind of the standard game plan against Darius. Ari was my second matchup, and Ari was a complete and total nightmare. I am extremely happy I was able to 2-1, and I'll get into some of the specifics as we keep talking about it, but there's been a pretty significant surge in Ari's running a blue Ari as compared to, some of the original Ari decks didn't even have blue Ari at all, and then it becomes like a reverse Master Yi, and holy crap, just a complete nightmare running against Ari. They especially because they're running like God Willow and Dreaming Tree as well. If you go first, you're in a much better position. It's very difficult if they're going first, and then I think if you're going second against Ari, you really need to focus on potentially mulling into things like challenge, hidden blade, and sabotage. Sabotage and hidden blade. Hidden blade put in a lot of work in that matchup, as well as sabotage. Yeah, it sucks letting them draw 2 cards, but honestly, the Ari deck fundamentally falls apart as soon as you get rid of blue Ari. That, like, the tanks are really strong, but that extra -2 is really the backbreaker, because you have any unit. I mean, you even have like your orange Sett. You get the orange Sett, you spend the buff, give it the plus 4, and then you showstopper, and so now it's at +5, but it still goes to -2. So this only ends up as a 6, right? After all the math, if you're attacking with showstopper, you're trying to move with showstopper, trying to maximize your damage output. You know, I had every single one of my primal strengths was countered. You know, that goes into why like the sabotage is so important, because the defies were just killer. But dealing with the blue Ahri, you know, once they're on the battlefield, especially if they're running Grove of the God Willow, is just, it's completely backbreaking. And even the sideboard functionally doesn't help. So I think that I haven't come up with honestly what I would do yet, but sideboard doesn't help because everything that Ahri runs is a tank. So Imperial Decree doesn't help because all your damage goes onto one thing, and then you're hitting like a wet noodle because, again, you're at like -3. Because Blue Ahri only costs 3. It's super easy to get her out. She's cantripping. Again, just Ahri is a complete and total nightmare matchup. So trying to mull into things like sabotage. Challenge is good, but it's also tough. If you're playing your units, trying to buff them, and then they keep getting charmed. But honestly, Hidden Blade is phenomenal, because yeah, it sucks letting Ahri draw 2 cards, but getting rid of Ahri, Blue Ahri, is extremely important because it's very difficult to get through the tanks. Beyond that, Hidden Blade, you know, the reason that you run it instead of like the Terminate is because you can target your own units. If you're running Dreaming Tree, let's say you've got a Cythria at your Dreaming Tree, you target it with a Hidden Blade. Yeah, you exhaust, so you lose a rune, but you're drawing 3 and you're not losing a unit. So you're going +2 in card advantage. It's phenomenal. But that was, again, the primary purpose of why I switched away from running the 3 yellow sets into the orange set. Because if you're getting, even against Yasuo again, right? Like if this unit gets moved ever, it sucks. It's terrible. It just gets destroyed. And then you're fighting against Ahri, and you're having to expend every single one of your resources to go even, right? So I'm using my buffs for Call of Glory. So I'm not even going up 3. I'm going neutral because Blue Ahri is giving me -2 and the Legend's giving me -1. And then, you know, I'm running out of cards. I have, you know, no card advantage because it's so difficult to get through if they are turtling. So that's why things like Sabotage and things like Hidden Blade are so useful. And like, you know, I had it happen a couple times. I Sabotage, they defied the Sabotage. I don't care. Right, I got your defy out. That's really all I was looking for. So green, purple, very, very difficult matchups. Specifically, Ahri was a very difficult matchup for this deck. Still got the 2-1, which I'm pretty happy about. But again, that's the main reason why I'm really not a fan of yellow Sett. Now, going back to matchups, Kai'Sa. And again, like I said, I haven't watched the 10K, but I have a feeling that the reason that they were running the yellow sets is yellow sets against Kai'Sa. Very good. Very strong. And it is extremely difficult to puncture through yellow Sett, especially against Kai'Sa. So functionally, what you have going on here is you are getting to a battlefield and you are holding a battlefield, and you are ending up going up a card every time they play one of their removal spells, because their creatures aren't very strong. Obviously, they have their Tailed Watchers, but if you are able to kind of go blow for blow using Sett's ability, you are having a really honestly like good matchup against Kai'Sa, right? You've got your creatures on the battlefields. They're void seekering. Obviously, it only costs them 3 mana. They're not paying the extra mana because they can they can use their legend ability. But you're exhausting a rune. You bring in your card back. You're maintaining your ability to contest the battlefields. And then with yellow Sett, once you get yellow Sett on a battlefield, obviously a Cathian Rain is a real tough one. But if you've got your Calls to Glory, you're able to use you're able to expend those buffs. Reflexive triggers are kind of a whole disaster right now. But you have 2 reflective units here, which is extremely strong. You have your Call to Glory, which is going to make them waste triggers. You have the ability to, save one of your units at a battlefield. It gets recalled to your base. If you have yellow Sett, let's say they have to spend all of their Cathian Rain triggers on your other units, which are buffed. But, if you're buffing your Pit Rookie, it's a 3. It doesn't die to one of the Cathian Rain triggers. If you're buffing your First Mate, it's going to 4. It's going to take 2 triggers. If you're buffing Kiana, you don't even need to buff Kiana. She just has Deflect. But even then, it costs 3, and it's going to cost a lot more. Fiora also has the Deflect. Extremely strong. This deck is very resilient to Kai'Sa. And if you are exhausting any of these creatures, given the way that reflexive triggers work, they do still have the ability to target that unit in base once you use the boss's ability to return it to the base after you exhaust it and recycle a rune. But it almost doesn't matter because they're spending 7 mana trying to clear the board. They're wasting triggers. They're having to use extra triggers because all of your units are buffed. And then if they don't manage to kill your units that are in base, if you still have your yellow Sett holding the battlefield, you are able to just move them back from your base immediately afterwards. And then, boom, you're buffing them again with the arena bar. That's giving +2 over here to Sett. It is extremely resilient against Kai'Sa. I can only imagine that the Atlanta 10K deck, I can only imagine that the Atlanta 10K deck was specifically designed to beat Kai'Sa, because this deck just extremely resilient to Kai'Sa in a way that I don't feel like I have felt outside of playing green decks with things like Windwall and Defy. So the decks that I didn't play against tonight were Aurora decks. I did not play against a Master Yi, which I cannot imagine I would have much fun with. I think this would be extremely difficult to deal with from a Yi angle. I did not play against any Aurora ramp decks. I feel like the Aurora ramp decks might actually be manageable, especially because yellow gets the best access to salvage, which is extremely strong against Aurora and, it's cantripping. And you can go relatively aggro, as well as, again, if you build up a board with yellow Sett, you drop yellow Sett, you get your Pit Rookies buffed up, you get your Cythrias buffed up. Yellow Sett just goes incredibly hard against even like a Dead Bloom Predator, right? Like you capture early because they're trying to ramp. I have personally played a lot of Volibear Aurora, so I know how much of a nightmare this would be. You have Sabotage, you get rid of their Auroras if you have them in the hand, you buff up, you capture early while they're trying to play their Catalysts. Next thing you know, you have Hidden Blades, so they're playing a Dead Bloom Predator to you. From an Aurora perspective, again, having played a lot of Volibear, if you're getting sabotaged, once you've gotten rid of like an Aurora or two, I don't really care if you're drawing cards, right? Like if you're a volleyball player and you're cascading from an Aurora perspective into like a Catagrin and you're drawing like a million cards, if you have like one Aurora on the battlefield, I've already sabotaged one of the other ones away. I don't know where that third one is, but I'm in a really good position because I'm holding. You're not getting through my yellow Sett. He's got, 18 power because I'm holding everything that I need to. I'm able to use my challenge because he has so much power that I can snipe anything that you have in your base. I could kill your Catagrin, no problem. I'm hiding my hidden blades. You're trying to run into me with any of your high power units. It's not working. I'm either killing them again with a challenge or a hidden blade, or I'm even pulling out a primal strength. You just can't get through the tank. I think that this deck would not struggle very much against like an MF Aurora or a Volibear Aurora deck, having played both of those pretty frequently myself. I think that this deck's worst matchup is Ahri, bar none. I think Ahri then Yasuo would give this difficulty, but outside of Ahri and Yasuo, and maybe Master Yi, but even from like Master Yi, again, you have things like Challenge, where this is non-combat damage. You're able to kill them pretty quickly. You can overcome some of the buffs that they have with Primal Strength. Fiora is good when she's got Deflect. Kiana is good. She also has Deflect. Call to Glory additionally helps you get over it. Hidden Blade. I know that sometimes they can Zonias, but that's why you have Sabotage. Showstopper is extremely good at, buffing units and then moving them across. But specifically getting ahead and using your yellow Sett, it just becomes very difficult. Like just because he has tank. Tank is so strong once you've been able to build up a little bit of a board. So I think that kind of my final thoughts on this deck is I get it. I do not like it. I did not enjoy playing this deck. I thought it was very good. Again, as evidenced by the performance and kind of how I feel like it would perform against some of the other decks in the meta. But at the same time, I don't feel like this deck has a strong enough tempo or advantage engine if you fall behind early. Going first for this deck, I consider to be extremely important. And there's just not enough card draw in this deck, in my opinion, outside of trying desperately to hold Grove of the Godwillow or the Dreaming Tree. Even here, Monastery obviously makes a lot of sense in this deck, but it's pretty difficult to make the call, do I expend my buff or do I have the ability to expend a buff, maybe like in the base because of Cythria, or do I need that buff to recall my unit using my legend ability? I think that there's a lot of really tough decisions that you have to make if you're playing this deck. And I felt during my time that if you made a mistake during any of those decisions, it was extremely difficult to recover. I ended up winning 2 or 3 of my games, I don't remember, completely empty-handed. And thankfully, I was able to, again, build up a strong wall with yellow Sett. And again, I still believe that playing him in your chosen champion zone is extremely strong, but I still like the purples. I felt like this deck was extremely susceptible to getting completely run over if you made a single misplay, and the tempo loss was pretty significant if you messed up like even once. The other kind of difficult thing about this deck is Pit Rookie. Pit Rookie and First Mate are both cards that you really never want to play as your first card or your only card. So when you're drawing your opening hand, I mean, even Kinkoku Monk as well, very difficult to end up with this in your starter if you don't have, I don't know, anything else, right? Even Cythria, like if you go Cythria into Pit Rookie, okay, well that feels bad because then you wasted a buff because you can't sequence them in the correct way. And that's why I really like the Daring Poro. It's nice to have something that you can drop these buffs on, but you have a Fiora in your opening hand. You're going first. You can drop her on your second turn, but again, if you're playing green, or actually mostly just if you're playing green and you get charmed, well, you haven't had a chance to buff her. She doesn't have ganking. She doesn't have reflect. She's not mighty. She's going to just get like killed basically. Right. So it's really nice to have a Cythria in your opening hand. But again, if you have a Cythria and a Pit Rookie, you're like, oh shit, like this doesn't feel very good because now I'm totally wasting a buff. So there's a lot of draws that don't feel good, but the boss's ability is just so strong because it gives you a card, in my opinion, because you're basically going up a card, right? Like if you Void Seeker my Cythria and I use the boss's ability, I return my Cythria. I mean, Void Seeker's maybe a bad example because it cantrips, but like being able to keep one of your cards and in many ways end up a card as your opponent tries to 1-for-1 is very strong. But the sequencing of this deck feels extremely awkward at times. Again, playing Fiora on turn 2, well, I can't buff her, so I don't get absolutely anything out of her. And then if I have an Arena Bar, I can play my Arena Bar, but then I have to move my Fiora in order to exhaust her, because you can only Arena Bar exhausted units. And then, she's not mighty for that specific turn. It's some of the sequencing just feels incredibly rough on this deck. So I felt like it was matchup dependent, of course, but mulliganing for your Poro sounds crazy. Mulliganing for Sabotage, extremely strong. And then mulliganing for Kiana, because Kiana, you have the ability to channel a rune or draw a card if you can get her down maybe turn 2. And ideally you can do some conquering with her, especially with the deflect, or maybe you play your Kiana, next turn you can throw down a Showstopper. That's super useful. Or the next turn you can actually get a Pit Rookie. But the sequencing of the draws were very difficult in this deck because it's really easy to waste buffs. And at a certain point, you kind of have to throw caution to the wind and just recognize that that's what's going to happen. But I felt like this deck was very finicky, very strong against certain decks, and just phenomenally difficult to play against purple and green specifically. But again, I get it. I don't know if this is the deck for me, but it is very resilient if you don't make mistakes. If you make mistakes, it's going to come down like a house of cards. But if you manage to sequence appropriately, this deck is incredibly sticky. So again, 3-0 with this list. I would recommend it if you're looking for a high skill ceiling deck, especially if you're seeing a lot of Kai'Sa. I think that this deck is phenomenally good against Kai'Sa. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the best deck in the world against Master Yi, but if you side in your Sabotage, and actually that's really the only thing that you can do against Master Yi, in my opinion, because if Zonia's, it's going to be hidden, so that doesn't really do anything. Unyielding Spirit doesn't really do anything. If you're feeling good with your sets, you can use their buffs and their ability with like Showstopper, but Sabotage is extremely strong. Hidden Blade is extremely strong in that regard. But if you're seeing a lot of Kaisa, I do think that this is a strong deck. And then if you're playing things like Volibear, I think that siding in the additional yellow sets is actually very strong. So, yeah, that's kind of the deck tech and the breakdown of this deck. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of that. I think it's a really interesting build, and again, I'm fairly certain that this deck, or the original deck, was built specifically to defeat Kaisa, and I think it would do like an excellent job at that. But I think that Sett is still just a little matchup dependent for me to feel too comfortable going over everything else that isn't a favorable matchup. So, all right. Thanks, guys.